What's up, guys? Today I'm going to show you how I combine hammer-ons, pull-offs, and slides to make interesting embellishments for R&B guitar chords. The first one is just a simple hammer-on. Now, there are two ways I like to think of hammer-ons when I play them in my chords: grace note hammer-ons and rhythmic hammer-ons. Grace note hammer-ons sound like this. These are hammer-ons that are super fast that almost sound like one note. These hammer-ons barely take any rhythmic value. The next hammer-on is a hammer-on that has rhythmic value. So in this instance, I'm using a hammer-on that has the rhythmic value of an eighth note. 1 and 2 and 3. 1 and 2 and 3. 1 and 2 and 3. Now these hammer-ons, of course, can take any rhythmic value. It's up to you to decide. The next thing I like to add to my chords are slides. So I like to add these to the end of my chords to give it a larger emphasis. This also combines your chord with a lead line, and then you can build off of these lead lines to make even more interesting possibilities. Now you can also add the opposite of a hammer-on, which is a pull-off. When I add pull-offs, I usually add them with a rhythmic value. 1 and 2 and 3. 1 and 2 and 3. 1 and 2 and 3. You can also use them as grace notes. But to me, grace notes sound better with hammer-ons, so I usually use pull-offs as rhythmic values. Now, another thing I want to talk about are hammer pulls, which are basically a hammer-on followed by a pull-off. So here we have our hammer-on, and then we release that finger to make it a pull-off. We can also do the opposite, which would be a pull-off followed by a hammer-on. These two combinations make your guitar chords come to life. It adds a bit of a lead line to your playing, which makes the chords kind of breathe. Another cool little technique I like to use are double hammer pulls. These are basically two hammer-ons followed by a pull-off. This technique works great over a minor 9 chord because it lets your middle finger and your pinky free to do whatever they want. When we play R&B guitar chords, it's important to identify any fingers that we are not using because we can use those to our advantage to add certain techniques or licks or anything else. The next thing I'd like to talk about are double slide pulls, which is basically 2 slides followed by a pull-off. I like to use these usually on upper voicings like this. So in this example, I'm taking an F major voicing, I'm sliding my pinky up, down, and then pulling it off to 10. You can also add it to a diminished voicing. For these diminished voicings, you do have to keep in mind the diagonal bar that goes from the 4th string to the 1st string with your index finger. Now what we can do is add a hammer-on before the 2 slides. I like to call this one hammer double slide pulls. So I'm taking the same concept of 2 slides and a pull-off, but before I start that concept, I'm adding a hammer-on in the beginning. A lot of neo-soul R&B guitar players like to use this one because it is pretty tasty. Alright guys, that's all I have for you today. There's an endless amount of combinations you can create between hammer-ons, pull-offs, and slides. So remember to create your own combinations, add them in different orders, and just add them to your tool bag. All right, guys, until the next one, happy practicing.